Atlanta home prices just hit an all-time high if you look at the data, but I think the numbers are off by a lot. So why does this market feel frozen? Rates are still high, payments are still tight, homes are sitting on the market for months. That's not what a record market is supposed to feel like. There's something happening in real estate right now that most people don't even know is happening. You won't see it on Zillow, you won't see it on realtor.com or Redfin, but it's happening in most home sales. Let me show you. It's in the MLS. Sellers are paying part of the buyer's closing cost, and in some cases, a lot of them. That number never becomes part of the price that the public actually sees. Here's how it works. Say your neighbor sells their house for $500,000. You look it up and think, great, mine's very similar. I can probably get $500,000 too. But what you don't see is that your neighbor agreed to pay $10,000 towards the buyer's closing cost. That $10,000 never shows up as a price cut anywhere that the public can see. The sale still shows as $500,000, even though the seller really only walked away with what they would have gotten from a $490,000 sale. The only place you will actually see the concession is in the MLS closing details. It's visible to agents, but it isn't reflected in the reported sales price or data anywhere. So I wanted to know how common this really was, so I pulled the closing sales from the last 18 months, and it's not rare. Listen to this. About 73% of home selling right now include some kind of seller paid closing cost. So around that $500,000 price point, the typical concession is about $10,000, and I will tell you, in some cases, it's even more than that. Think about that for a second. So when you're looking at what a house sold for, you're not seeing the whole deal. So why are sellers doing this instead of just dropping the price? Sometimes it's simply what the buyer asks for instead of a price cut. And I'll get into why buyers lean that way in just a second. But there's a second reason, and it's the one that most people never think about. It's about protecting the comparable home sale. The sales price is the number every buyer, every appraiser, and every agent in the neighborhood is going to see. A seller who drops the price by $10,000 just created a lower comp for every other homeowner around them. But a seller who gives that same $10,000 back at closing still gets to report a $500,000 sale, and most people never know the difference. Home builders play this game the most. They will cover closing costs. They will buy down your interest rate to 4%, and sometimes it can cost them $30,000 to do it. They will throw in upgrades, almost anything, before they will lower the price, because they're protecting the value of every other home they still have to sell in that community. Here's the part I think most people are missing, and it's more important than the number itself. Taking closing cost help instead of a real price reduction can come back to hurt you later. Think about it this way. If the seller drops the price by $10,000, the price you paid on paper matches what the home was actually worth in today's market. But if you take that same $10,000 as closing cost credit instead, the purchase price stays at an inflated $500,000, and on paper, you paid $500,000 for a home that really traded closer to $490,000. And here's the thing, that gap doesn't just disappear. It's baked into your loan and eventually becomes part of the comp when you sell. Now, I get why buyers choose the closing cost option. It's about cash. It lowers the amount you have to bring to the closing table, and that's real money that you can use for moving expenses, repairs, furniture, or whatever the house needs once you close. But here's what most buyers don't think about. In the first 3 or 4 years of a mortgage, most of your payment goes towards interest only, not principal. You're barely paying down the loan. So in year 1 or 2, you're not building much equity through your monthly payments. Most of your equity is whatever you put down plus whatever the market gives you at the time. So if you took the closing cost help instead of the price reduction, you gave up that extra cushion a lower purchase price would have given you. If life forces you to sell in those first few years, you could end up upside down in your home. Because you've barely paid down the loan, you started with a higher purchase price, and the market may not have had enough time to make up that difference for you. And that's how someone can end up owning a home that's practically worthless to them in the short term. Not because the house isn't valuable, but because they don't have enough equity to sell it without taking a loss. Let's play this out with two buyers. They're both buying the exact same $500,000 house in the exact same month. Buyer A negotiates the price down to $490,000. Buyer B takes the house at $500,000 and gets a $10,000 credit at closing. At first glance, it looks like the same deal. Stretch $10,000 over a 30-year mortgage and it barely moves the needle. So on paper, it feels like a wash. 2 years later, life happens. Maybe it's a job transfer or you just simply need more space. Both buyers have to sell. If the market is still flat, which it has been the last couple years, buyer A starts from a stronger position because they bought the home for $490,000. Buyer B bought the exact same house, they just paid a higher price on paper. They may have to bring more money to the closing table or do exactly what the seller did for them and offer concessions to get the deal done. The difference is they're negotiating from a weaker position because they have less room to work with. Now, most of the time, this never becomes an issue because most people aren't selling just after 2 years. Home values often go up, the gap closes, and none of this matters. But you don't get to choose when life forces you to move. That's why it's worth thinking about before you buy, not after. And there's one more piece of this that I think catches a lot of buyers off guard. Closing cost credits and rate buydowns feel better in the moment because they lower what you have to bring to the closing table or your monthly payment. And let's be honest, that monthly payment is what most buyers are focused on. A lower purchase price just isn't as exciting because you don't feel the benefit right away. So buyers naturally gravitate towards the option that makes today feel easier instead of the one that could protect them years from now. And I get why. But a lower purchase price is the one thing that's still working for you long after the rate buy down has expired or the closing cost credit is gone. So if you're thinking about buying soon, here's my advice. I know it's tempting to take the closing cost credit because it feels like free money in the moment. But if you have the leverage to negotiate either one, I would ask for the lower purchase price first. If the seller is willing, you can always try to negotiate some closing cost on top of a price reduction. Don't just give up on the price reduction first. It's the one thing that keeps working for you long after closing. If you're planning to sell soon, go in with your eyes wide open. There's a strong chance buyers are going to ask for some kind of concession, so plan for it. In today's market, that's how a lot of these homes are getting sold. It's a much better outcome than pricing too high, sitting on the market, cutting the price later, and still end up giving concessions anyway. That's the scenario that usually costs sellers the most money. Here's my take on why this hasn't corrected, and I'm not just talking about Atlanta, I'm talking about the market nationwide. Buying a home is extremely expensive, plain and simple. And when something is expensive, people naturally look for whatever gets them through the door, not necessarily the choice that's going to serve them the best 5 years from now. A lower cash to close number and a lower monthly payment are what help a lot of buyers qualify and get to the closing table today. A real price reduction does more for you in the long run, but it's not the option most buyers are being encouraged to focus on. So buyer after buyer, deal after deal, people keep reaching for the easier path instead of negotiating the price itself. When you multiply that across millions of transactions, you end up with a national price picture that doesn't tell the whole story. And I think this is part of the reason why home values feel so skewed. If I can help you navigate this real estate market in any way, this is my cell phone number. Feel free to reach out. Also, my entire contact information is in the description below. And hey, if you like this video, go check out this next one. These are the biggest mistake home buyers should avoid in this market. I hope to see you over there.